I haven't plugged in my headphones, and that's why I can't hear myself.
That'll do it.
Why is it so much quieter today, Daniel? Boom. Magic.
So much better.
I wore different pants today, and I should have used my my leather back case so that my phone slid in and out of my phone pocket better. I was having silicone pocket problems, which is one of the key reasons why I hate silicone cases.
So first off, you have podcasting pants and you're not wearing them? Is that
No, they're not my podcasting pants. They're different pants.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you normally have podcasting pants, but now you're wearing different pair of pants.
No, I changed pants. I'm not wearing my podcasting pants. I mean, I've podcasted in these pants before.
Is every pair of pants a podcasting pair of pants?
No.
Definitely not.
Absolutely not.
So explain this leather back thing to me. Are these pants excessively tight or why?
These pants have a bespoke phone pocket on the back right hip. Okay. Instead of just putting it in your back pocket, you can put it in the phone back pocket, which is like slightly higher and slightly farther over. So one, you're not sitting on it, and two, your shirt covers it if you're not 100 feet tall. So my shirt only mostly covers it, lol. And it's a little too exactly the same size as my phone for it to work with the silicone case. But if I had put the leather back on, it would have worked, and I would have known that if I'd put my phone in my pocket before I left the house. It was a problem. Yeah. It wasn't like a huge problem, but it was like kind of a problem.
It sounds like a pretty big problem.
Yeah, it was like a medium problem. It was not the biggest problem that I had today.
Do you want to elaborate on what the biggest problem you had today was?
I'd have to think about it more. I just know, like, you know how, like, if someone's like, what's your favorite food? Cheeseburgers? And you're just like, no, that's definitely not my favorite food. And they're like, well, what's your favorite food? And you're like, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it too much. Maybe I'm like a rice bowl kind of guy, but you haven't really, really thought about it. But you definitely know it's not cheeseburgers. That's the situation that I'm in.
Welcome back to the Camera Gear Podcast. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Lucas.
And we're here today to talk about the gear, software, and techniques we use to shoot photos and video.
You got a lot of tabs open. Yikes. Okay.
I'm sort of wondering if I could get through this entire show without saying anything. just wait for you to keep going.
No, Daniel, I will always pause to get your opinion briefly before I continue to elaborate excessively.
It just seemed like we were really off to a good start with the monologue there. Hopefully we can keep that up.
Just calm down. I think I'm gonna get tea on your table.
Yeah.
It's okay, Daniel. Oh, no, wait. I have my stretch over here. My little towel.
Oh, that's adorable.
It looks like a paisley bandana, and it's roughly the size of it. But this is one of those nomad towels, not nomadic and not nomadic or nomadic. Neither. Maybe it is one of those. Maybe it's nomadics. Oh dear. This is the problem. It's not the camera company, but they make those like hyper-absorbent towels that are like really small and lightweight. I have one that's like super, super lightweight that I really like. Anyways, I just have it with me here because I'm going to spill things.
How much coffee have you had today?
I had not enough. I had like 2 cups of coffee. I was going to get coffee on the way over here.
It sounds like you've had more coffee than that.
No, I haven't even started drinking this tea yet.
The caffeine level will only increase.
Is this caffeinated tea? I thought all your teas were uncaffeinated. Yeah,
you're right. It is.
It smells cinnamony. I thought it said black tea on it, Daniel.
You might have grabbed the wrong one.
I mean, there wasn't only one. It was the red one. Well, let me give it a whiff. Yeah, I can't tell. Tea just smells like dirty water to me.
Okay, Ted Lasso. So it seems like
I'm not even trying to get into any topics.
I know,
This is like pre-show. This is like post-pre-show.
Post-pre-show.
Just really warming up. You know, got to get things going. Yeah. So this is the Camera Gear Podcast. If you're new here, we talk about camera gear.
Sometimes.
I don't know if we actually ever address the listeners. Go ahead and cut that out. I don't want to think about them.
You don't want to break the fourth wall?
No. Just me and you here, Daniel. Me, you, and my tea and my paisley bandana.
And your podcasting pants.
And my podcasting pants and my Lando Norris hat.
Yes.
Yep. And I'm wearing a shirt because summer's over.
Indeed.
Yep.
Indeed it is.
This shirt used to be white. I don't know if you can tell. Whenever I ran...
What color is it now?
It's hard to say. I ran a 5K Yeah, and I accidentally put the tie-dye purple shirt that I got from the 5K into the wash with my brand new white shirt.
Ooh, bad news.
Oh boy, now it's very off-white and a little dingy.
Bad move on that part.
Mm-hmm. I should probably just take it off.
No. That's not what you should do.
Okay, camera stuff.
Yeah, cameras.
So there was a Lumix event very, very recently, i.e. today.
Yeah, this morning.
Sure, yep. So let's talk about some Fuji rumors.
Sounds great.
Yeah. So have you seen the stuff on the M5?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I've seen some like leaked whatever. I don't know if they're like mock-ups or actual photos. They look like photos, but yeah, I've seen some stuff on that camera.
So there was an announcement of an announcement very like just the other day.
Yeah, there's an upcoming Fuji Summit on October 14th, which is
just around the corner.
I think this podcast will come out the day after that.
Okay, that makes sense. Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Probably perfect timing for this conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great.
Yes. This is how we do it here.
Okay, well, be careful about that then, I guess. They always do that, though. They're like, we're going to talk about something in 2 weeks or 1 week. And these are the things we're going to talk about. Bye.
Yep.
And it's like, thanks for the like pre-announcement announcements. Are you trying to build hype? There wasn't any air horns. There were no fireworks. But fine. And I think that one of the big things they're announcing or coming up announcing is like some firmware upgrades to the XH2S and the GFX
also
and the XH2.
Also the XH2. And I think some of it was stuff they had mentioned in the past because I think that part of the problem is autofocus performance, like with subject tracking and stuff. And I think they had come out and said, we know that it's gotten a little worse and we're going to fix that. And then now they're saying, this firmware update is coming. I think they said November.
Yep.
And they said it's going to have that.
Yeah, they keep saying things like whether it's going to be competitive with the rest of the market, autofocus, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I'm waiting to see it, guys.
I'm not holding my breath for that.
No, I'm sure it'll be a marginal improvement, and I'll be happy to have it. And you won't update your firmware, and it'll be fine.
Yep.
Point is, maybe they announce the M5.
You're missing some stuff on that firmware though. We need to talk about the rest of that firmware.
Oh, I forgot what it was.
Because they also said, and I think this was in the actual announcement. They said there's going to be a new F-Log 2C.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about that. Daniel, stop the presses. We have to talk about that for about 10 minutes. Okay, so it's a new gamut. It's a new gamut, right? So they have the F-Log 2 gamma, and like just finally recently DaVinci Resolve's like, okay, now we support F-Log 2. And then Fuji's like, okay, now we're releasing a new version of and I'm like, no. But from what it seems, it's going to be the same gamma curve. So like your stops in like the logarithmic curve that you're going to conform to, that should be the same, but it's going to be a wider color space.
Yeah.
And like right now, F-Log and F-Log 2 are built over Rec 2020, which is like decently sized. It covers a lot of like the HLG and like Rec 100 color space. It definitely colors like Rec 709. It's a pretty broad color space, but it is not as broad or competitive as some of the other cameras out there. Like the color space for V-Log may be roughly similar, but like S-Log 3 is way bigger, and et cetera, et cetera. And so kind of cool that they're going to expand the range. I mean, they're pulling 14 bits off this sensor, Dan. There's no reason they can't do a bigger gamut. And like, yeah, sure, it's more data. It's the same amount of data spread across more colors, but it's cool to have more colors.
Yeah.
The gamut is not quite as large as Asus, but Asus is pretty stinking big. And it looks like it's like 80% the size of Asus. So
yeah. And that's coming to the XH2S. I don't know which other cameras, maybe all of them, maybe the XH2 and the GFX 100, but that's a pretty exciting new feature.
Yeah, unclear. Definitely feels like it's an XH2S, XH2 thing. I hope it comes to the XT5 for reasons.
Well, so one thing I was going to say on that is, it didn't mention the color space thing specifically, but I did see that I think someone asked them about the autofocus stuff specifically with cameras like the XS20 and the XT5, and they said they're working on that.
Yeah.
So it's not coming out in November with this one, but it sounds like that isn't the plan.
Okay, cool.
And so that gives me hope that if they're planning on releasing a firmware update for those cameras, then maybe this F-Log 2C thing may come to that as well.
It's good to see that they're thinking about it. and that there's still development happening for those cameras.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's still some features from the GFX, like the waveforms and things that I'm like really want to see on my camera, and I'm hoping those come too. But it's nice to hear, oh, hey, there's new stuff coming, and maybe it's more than just like support for camera to cloud.
Yeah, I agree.
So pretty pumped. Yep. And yeah, I don't know, F-Log 2C.
Yeah.
Very excited about it.
Yep. Okay, now you can talk about the M5.
Okay, but maybe they're going to come out with an M5, which there was an M1 before it. I don't think there's been an M2, 3, or 4. This is just like the first version of M5. Honestly, it's been so long since the M1 came out, like 2017 kind of time frame. I didn't even know there was M series cameras for Fujifilm, and I know every single Fujifilm camera.
Well, it's weird too because they used to have more lines, and they've kind of pared them down.
Yeah, like they used to have a whole A line that they don't sell anymore.
A line, and they also had like the XE series.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this M camera seems like maybe it's the new E series.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Well, yeah, the E series was kind of like you had your X Pro, and then you had your cheaper version, which was the XE.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have like your XT and then your XT30. They used to have the XT100s and XT200s, which were even smaller than the 30s series, which is kind of cool. This does feel like it's maybe merging all those things, and it also feels like Fuji is making a G9 competitor, which is not, did I say G9? Is that right?
You mean S9.
S9, an S9 competitor, which is kind of interesting, I guess. Like the rumored and the images and stuff, it's like, look at this sliding out of somebody's back pocket because it's so tiny. They probably have a 27 millimeter f2 on there, huh? Wish you could buy one of those. Lol. That's why you can't buy them. They've been holding back so they can ship them with the M5. That's my conspiracy theory now. Anyways, from like the rumor, it looks like no EVF, and there is the film simulation dial from the XT50.
Yep.
And then it looks like there's a PSAM dial with custom modes like the XH2 and the XS20.
Cool.
So kind of a PSAM auto with film simulation dial type, just point and shoot camera, but with interchangeable lenses.
So where do you think that slots in price wise with the rest of their lineup?
In my opinion, that thing's got to be $1,000 or less.
Yeah, it seems like they're cheap camera because it has to be below the XT50.
They don't have anything that's really like sub $900 anymore, do they?
No, that seems like one of the biggest gaps they have. So it would make a lot of sense to release this and have it be something that's actually affordable.
I'd love to see it at like $600,
and then
like with a lens under $1,000.
Yeah, that'd be great. It'd probably get a lot of people into Fuji. But,
definitely something to kind of fill the gap for people who want like an X100V, X100VI, but with interchangeable lens.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really that either because it doesn't have the viewfinder. That would just be an XE series camera.
And I was going to ask do you ever see yourself buying something like this that doesn't have an EVF?
Oh yeah, for sure. I could see myself owning something, even like a Lumix S9 that is really small, compact, easy to use, just point and shoot type digital camera. But I mean, like to an extent, most of that need for me has been filled by film cameras.
Yeah.
And I like shooting film for that kind of just not really trying to think about the exposure or like overdo it. And then if I need that digitally, I'm just going to do it with my phone. And if I need one step up from that, it's going to be my X-T5.
Sure.
So it's like kind of hard to find a spot for it, but I do like the idea of what if I had a very small camera with me all the time, and maybe that was something like a full frame Lumix S9, or even like a, don't make that noise, Daniel. What's that camera? What is it, Daniel? The Sony. Oh,
this is one of our bingo items that you always talk about.
No. I don't ever talk about this one, but I do want one. It's basically the A7S III, but it's not because it's one of those other cameras and it's got a V in it. Maybe. I'm blanking so hard right now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. You can get it in white. It's super adorable.
The ZV-E1.
Yes, that's the one. Yep. ZV-E1. I still want one of those super bad. Yeah. I don't really have good use for it, but I feel like if I had one of those, I could be a vlogger.
Yep.
Maybe my life would just be more interesting all of a sudden. Not that it's not. I have a podcast. I could be vlogging right now, but I don't have a white ZV-E1.
So you can't.
Exactly. Ugh. What am I going to do? Use my phone? Ugh.
All right. Did they? Were there any other rumors associated with this event?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, Daniel. there have been rumors circling, and I don't know if this is going to happen in the event or not.
I don't think this one's very interesting. We probably shouldn't talk about this one.
Shut up. There's a rumor that we're going to get the 16-55 Mark II for XF.
Finally.
And what I said to myself when I heard about that was, boy, I don't have enough standard zooms for my camera.
You thought, I'm going to keep the ones I've got and just buy this one to add on.
Yep, I need a third one. Yep. That's what I need. No, man. Like, the second this comes out, I am selling both of my lenses and buying this lens. And that is my future. There's rumors that, it sounds like it's going to be even bigger. It used to be that all of Fuji's lenses were like 62 millimeter filter threads, and now they're all like 67 millimeter filter threads. There's a rumor that this one's going to be 72.
The previous one was 77.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Shut up. That's the second time I said shut up today. Can't say it anymore.
Yep.
We're done with 2000.
Yeah. No, it's actually a smaller filter size.
Is it really smaller?
Yeah.
I thought the other one was like 67 or something.
Nope.
Was it? Wow. Isn't the 50 to 140 72?
Yeah.
Well, that would be nice. Same filter size as the size. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they're making it smaller.
Yep.
That's even more exciting, Daniel. Oh, I'm so pumped now. The other one wasn't stabilized. I would expect this one to not be stabilized either.
Here. Yeah.
But maybe it'll be declicked, like with a switch to declick it.
Yeah, I prefer that over, just declicked. Like, I'd rather have the switch, because for photos, I do like having the clickable, I can change this and I know it's one stop or whatever. But for video, it'd be really cool to have a declicked aperture.
I complain, one of us complains about Fuji's lens lineup in video, and like they push all these video functions. They don't come out with a lot of like video oriented lenses. They came out with that 18 to 120 f4 with a power zoom on it. I don't ever hear a lot about people using that lens. It's kind of decent. They obviously have their cine lenses, the MK series, that are like really, really expensive. They're not that
They
expensive,
also have those massive box lenses that, like used for a broadcast camera.
I don't even
the
know.
ones that are like 9 to 8,000 millimeter.
Yep. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Those things. I don't think you mount those on XF, Daniel.
No, probably not.
Anyways. But if they come out with a new, like, people want to use a standard zoom for video that's 2.8. Like, if you want a 2.8 zoom for video on Fujifilm, it's like, what do you buy? The 17-70 is a really great option. It's got decent stabilization. It's 2.8, blah, blah, blah. But having one that's first party that has a declicked aperture, maybe it's better focus breathing, maybe it's a little more parafocal, that could be really appealing, and it could help enforce the thread of conversation from Fuji of, we make hybrid video cameras.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it could be good. And especially something where like, it's basically just an add-on nice feature. Like if you can declick the aperture, but you can still get the normal behavior, like that's pretty cool.
Yep. Anyway, we'll see what happens. That lens is almost guaranteed to be in my future, especially if I can offset the cost completely by selling two other lenses.
I bet you can. I bet if you sell both of the others, you can offset the cost.
That's my plan.
Yeah. Cool. That seems like I don't know about you. I didn't know this event was coming until the announcement, and then all these rumors kind of popped up, and it's pretty exciting. It's like, Fuji's giving us some stuff for their existing cameras, which we've been kind of worried that they were, letting those be in the past. So It's good to see that. And the new M series camera seems like maybe it's Fuji getting back to that lower price tier, which we've been kind of worried that they were trying to push into being more premium brand. And then, we've been wondering where this lens update was. So, it seems pretty cool. It's like they're, assuming these rumors are true, it seems like they're potentially giving us a lot of what we've kind of been wanting. Not everything. We could always think of more, but pretty good.
I guess to not mix rumors and event. If I had to make a prediction on what's going to be in this event, a similar time frame to the GFX announcement last year. I don't think they've had a GFX event this year since. No, because they did release one GFX camera.
They released the new GFX 50 or something.
Right, but they are going to announce like their winners of the GFX like fun thing that they do. They do like a grant program. Yeah. I think what they're going to do is they're going to announce the zoom, probably. They like to announce them before they actually release them. So they'll announce it now and then they'll release it in the spring is my expectation. That it will ship like next summer or something stupid. But usually like they like to show up a 2D graphic of the image and be like, this is coming in the future because it's in development.
You're right. They do that. Yeah. They do like doing that.
So I think that at most we get that for this lens. I don't think they touch on anything else for the APS-C cameras except the firmware update, and I think they talk about the GFX the entire time.
So you think the M series camera will probably come later?
Yeah, I don't think that's coming in the near future. I think it's going to be a GFX conversation with some firmware announcements.
Okay, cool. Well, the people that are listening to this show can get on the internet and find out what really happened and see if we were correct or not.
And then just really let me have it.
Yes.
Who do you think you are?
You should email Lucas if he's wrong about these rumors and make him feel bad about it. Don't do that.
I don't want to feel bad about it. I'm not going to apologize.
So should we continue the rumor conversation and talk about this, the Lumix event?
Yes. I mean, is it rumors if the event happened?
Well, the event did happen, but man, there were a couple days there where I was pretty excited because I think the same day I found out about this this X Summit happening, I was doing my my rumor tour as I do pretty. I get on L rumors pretty often because I'm really interested in L mount.
Doesn't own a single L mount camera.
I know.
Just drools
this
over Pixuses and DJI Ronin 4Ds and S5 Mark II X's and
this news popped up and said there was a Lumix announcement on October 8th. And I was like, this is it. This is the moment. And for a while, it seemed like the rumors were saying like this could be the S1H Mark II. This could be the S1R Mark II. It's really, really looking forward to seeing what it was. And then about a day before the event, all that changed and it turned into, well, it's probably, just a firmware update and, maybe some, small update to the original S5, it didn't really seem exciting. And then the event happened and those recent rumors were more correct. So it wasn't as exciting as it could have been, but
sad.
At least Lumix is doing things.
At least Lumix is doing things. And somebody buried the lead here. I read about like the new lens they came out with and I read about the firmware stuff that they're doing and all of it seems really exciting. I didn't realize until just now when I was browsing lrumors.com or whatever the name of that website is, l-rumors.com.
Which is it's an English website. When you hear L Rumors, you would think, oh, it's probably Spanish, but it's actually written in English.
No comment. They came out with two colors.
Did they?
Buried the lead,
I missed
dude.
that.
They have one that's pink and they have one that's like aqua.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm really into it. I want a pink S9 like so bad now. This is really good.
So,
previously, I really liked the green because they had the blue, the forest green, and the red. But now they have pink and aqua.
I think if you're excited about the S9,
sorry, mint green.
I think if you're excited about the S9, this was a really good event because, you got the new colors.
Sakura, not pink. Sakura.
I just don't care. Not in a picture.
What if I showed you a picture of it? Would that help? It's like bubble gum.
Not really.
A little bit?
Not really.
Yeah? I'm into it.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of cool.
Maybe some people will be. And then they also came out with that new lens. So it's 18 to 40 f 4.5 to 6.3.
Yep.
And it's very small.
Daniel, it's the world's smallest and lightest zoom, according to Panasonic.
Is.
I didn't look to see what all the caveats were on that. I don't know if it's actually the world's smallest and lightest zoom or if it's the world's smallest and lightest full frame zoom 4L mount produced in 2024.
Yeah, it very well could be. So some interesting things. It collapses down, it looks like.
Yes, it is not. It is the kind of the size of like a pancake-ish lens, very short.
When it's collapsed, I assume.
When it's collapsed. I think it's like 1.6 inches tall when it's collapsed. And then it pops out a little bit. Maybe you get another half an inch on the nose distance whenever you're zooming in and out.
I'm down with that. I mean, overall, like that's a great lens for that camera to where it's still small, but you actually get a zoom range because when it came out, they released it with that 26 millimeter f8 lens that just didn't make any sense.
Constant aperture, plastic.
Yeah.
Manual focus.
Yeah.
This one has autofocus, Daniel.
That's a big improvement.
What do you think about the focal range? So this seems like this is the kit lens. When you buy an S9, you can buy an S9 and this kit lens for like $1,800 or something like that. So it's a maybe like a $300 ad to get this lens with the camera.
Right.
That's a decent kit lens price, like pretty common. So you can go $1,800 for that. You get $1,500 and bring your own lenses. All makes total sense. Why didn't they release this with a little camera? Who knows? This is exactly like this whole event was like, here's all the things you complained about for the S9, and here we're gonna fix it.
Yeah.
So, anyways, 18 to 40. What do you think about that?
For full frame, I think it's a pretty good range for what this camera is for, because on the 18 side, you're getting a nice wide shot. So if you want to do like a selfie, or you're taking like a landscape or something, that's maybe good for that. But then 40 is a pretty, like we've talked about 40 millimeter lenses on this show, and it seems like a pretty interesting focal length.
Yeah.
And so
normal field of view.
It's cool that you can go from super wide to something that's, a pretty good, normal field of view type range. And I mean, I think considering that they obviously wanted this to be a very physically small lens, I think it makes a lot of sense as a range.
Yeah, it seems like you usually have to compromise on that long end if you're going to try to make it really short. Yeah. It's surprising they were able to make it as short as they did and still go to 18 millimeters. That's pretty good. Normally you don't see that wide on full frame. I mean, sure, it's a little slow, 4.5 to 6.3. I'm okay with that for what this is. And I kind of like the market for this. 18 to 40 is just about right. Yeah. I'm pretty supportive of that choice and that focal range. Maybe a 20 to 40 would have been fine too. 18, it's nice to have it a little wider. So
yeah. I mean, I think it's good.
It's got like a 6-inch minimum focal distance, which is pretty short. So that's kind of versatile, and it's like really, really light. It's like 155 grams.
What have you seen? Have you seen anything about the performance or image quality?
It's basically good enough. Is kind of what everyone seems to be saying. It has a decent amount of focus breathing. It doesn't really produce like super good sun stars. It kind of flares a little bit. It's not super, super, super sharp, but it's also not bad. It's like if you take a picture, you try to stop down, just bring up like increase the sharpness, maybe reduce any sort of like minor vignetting. The image doesn't really like get better. The corners don't really get sharper. It's kind of just perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
It's not like if you go look at a like a G Master 24 to 70, it's going to be miles better than this.
But it's a much bigger lens.
But I think that it's going to be better than like your plastic, Canon kit lenses that were on EF mount 10 years ago. I think from what I can tell, it's like this is a very serviceable, good lens, maybe a little better than what you would normally connotate with kit lens.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good add. It's nice that it has an AF MF switch on it. It's nice that it collapsed down to get really small, and it's a 67 millimeter filter thread. So it's like fairly small for full frame.
Yeah. Cool. And then they also released some firmware features for that camera.
They sure did. And these were pretty big, Daniel.
Yeah, I would say so.
I mean, I only know about two of them, so you have to tell me about all the other ones that I totally miss here. But there was the removal of the recording limits. And
that's the biggest change, I think.
It's an option in the menu. But you can go into the menu and, hey, take these away. No recording limits. Because previously,
why would you leave that on?
I don't know. You could only do like 6K for 10 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, and so I think Petapixel did a rundown test on it, and they were getting over an hour for 6K 30 and 4K 30, and then maybe like a little less for 4K 60.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, fantastic. All of a sudden, this is totally usable for things like I'm going to shoot a little talking head thing with my cool little full frame camera.
Well, I think it really changes. Like for me, it suddenly makes that camera a lot more interesting for me, because I feel like, you've got this option now for a really small but still like decent lens. And then now you don't have the record limit, so you could use it as a B cam. Like I mean, I'm sure somebody out there will use it as their A cam, and I think it's probably perfectly fine for that. But like someday if I had this and a high end, L mount camera, it's like this could be my little photo camera, but then like it's also a perfectly serviceable B cam that can use all the same lenses. This makes a huge difference for that use case.
Yeah, I think it unlocks a lot of potential for this as secondary camera, but then also, like you said, secondary camera, but then also here's my photo camera. But I think it also makes it viable again for if your target market is like creators and vloggers who just need something small and with them.
For sure.
Now they can shoot and there is going to be a heat issue. Like it may eventually overheat, especially in more demanding environments. But probably for most things, when you're shooting like no more than a 15-minute clip, it's nice that you have like a little more headroom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
And then finally, they announced firmware updates for some of their other cameras. So the G9 II and the S5 II and the S5 IIX. And the main thing that I think they added was basically the Lumix Lab support to those cameras.
Lab.
Yep. So
did those already have the ARRI log thing?
I don't know if any of them did, because I know the GH7 did, but I think that was new for that camera, so I don't know if those had support for that or not.
Okay, was that part of this?
I don't think so.
Rollout?
I didn't see that.
That would have been super cool if it was.
Yeah.
You didn't talk about the frame lines.
Yeah, that wasn't very exciting to me, I guess.
It's cool. I think it's. I mean,
what was the feature there?
You could put more than one set of frame lines on your image. So say you're shooting like open gate and you want like a vertical set and a horizontal set. You can put them on there, position those rectangles wherever you want in like the aspect ratio that you need, and just dirty up your frame wherever you need to with your frame lines.
Nice. That's
super useful and handy.
Cool. So pretty. Like for me, this event was a little disappointing because I was really hoping to see S1H Mark II. I think a lot of people were. I was looking at some comments online and people are saying like, it's been 5 years or 6 years or whatever it's been since the original S1H. And I think people are upset about that. But, if you're interested in the S9, I think this was a really good event.
Oh my gosh, Daniel, you didn't even tell me that they're bringing like a monochrome to the S5 Mark II.
I purposely left that out.
Take my money.
Switching to L mount as we speak.
Right now, I'm actually posting all of my stuff for sale. I couldn't afford a Leica, but now that I can get it in an S5 Mark II.
Specifically Leica monochrome.
Mm-hmm. That's the good monochrome.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I don't know. I think it's nice that for me, for Lumix, it feels like they've been focusing a lot on like their S5 line, and like here's S9 and like the lower end cameras and trying to like build that market and support. It's felt like they've been kind of ignoring their top end for a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
It hasn't felt like they don't care or anything. It's like, it seems like they're doing stuff. And it's always encouraging to me when you see a company come back out and like, hey, we heard your complaints and like here's some fixes that we think address some of your concerns. Here's a new lens. Here's some firmware updates. And that feels like old Panasonic to me. Like with the from the GH3 to the GH4, where they saw all the firmware hacks and people were doing to the cameras, instead of like locking it down, they said, let's do that. Let's put those features in our camera. And this kind of feels a little bit of the same to me. They're equalizing things across the line. Let's bring new features to old cameras, which some companies, Sony, don't even do anymore.
Yep.
Ever. Just kidding. But they did it quickly. The S9 has only been out since May.
Mm-hmm.
And they have improved the S9 since May. So
yeah. And not just with that firmware, but also that new lens where it's like, that pancake lens is pretty specifically for the S9. I mean, you could buy it for any L mount camera and it would work on all those, but it's clear that it's like, this is a new lens for the S9. And it's good to see them still showing attention to that camera.
Definitely. Yeah. That's all very encouraging. Anyway, I think that's enough preamble to waste enough time so that when I say this is actually our Canon C80 super episode, that people still think it's a super episode because the episode turned out to be like over an hour long. But it just turned out we talked about Fuji and Lumix for the first half of it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell anyone.
It's a C80 super episode.
Mm-hmm. Huh? Yep, where we only talk about the C80 except for that preamble stuff. It's not even out yet, Daniel. There's nothing to say.
When does it come out?
Not May. November. Sometimes I say November instead of May.
We're almost there.
Yeah, it's just around the corner.
Yeah. Very close.
Right there. You can pre-order it.
This came out, it was announced a while back. We've had this on our list for a while.
That's true. It has been on our list almost embarrassingly long. Mm-hmm. Maybe not that long. There are some things that have been on our list for that long. Those topics may never come up.
I remember when this was announced, and I was pretty excited when I saw the announcement because the Canon C70 was, a pretty well-regarded camera. And I think continues to be. I think people are still using it. And
importantly, Canon is not removing it from the line.
Yeah.
Similar to other things in Canon's line, this is a new camera, not a replacement camera.
Yeah, that's an interesting place for it to be. But, I think the C70 served a really good purpose as a pretty small and more affordable than their other cinema options, but still gives you like some of those cinema level features. And honestly, it's a camera like that is a niche that I'd love to see, like Fuji get into. Like, give me a Fuji version of, here's a lightweight cinema camera, but we know they're never going to do that. And so they had the C70, and then there were rumors of, I think I'd seen two rumors. I saw a C50 and a C80 as possibilities.
Yeah.
And I mean, we don't know. The C50 may come at some point, but we got the C80, and it's pretty exciting.
It is pretty exciting. It does feel like a pretty straight upgrade from the C70.
Mm-hmm. It does.
From what I've heard, the images are very close in like color and how they run like the gamma for the highlights and the roll-offs and all this sort of stuff that you can match footage well enough with them. I think
that's good.
The sensors have very different capabilities and almost such that there are reasons you would still use a C70 potentially over a C80, I would think. But if you were using both or you had a C70, now you need something else, it could make sense to also then buy a C80 and then have two.
Mm-hmm. I think we should go ahead and say price-wise, it's the same as the C70 was. So I think when the C70 came out, it was $5,500. You can get it cheaper now.
Right. C70 is what, like $5,000?
Well, I think it might be $4,500 new at this point.
Right.
Because the C80 is $5,500.
That's right. Yeah. So $4,500 now for the C70, and then the C80 is $5,500, and then the new C400, which matters in this conversation, is $8,000.
Yeah, big jump up.
Yeah, about $2,500 more. So,
yep.
And that's important because this is the same sensor as a C400.
Yeah,
it is the C400 sensor. That's really cool.
And I think that's probably the biggest change in this camera, because the C70 was APS-C or Super 35, I should say.
Right.
And this is a full frame sensor.
Right. Yeah. So that's it, right? You can say that and you can go home. The C70 was like 8-ish megapixels, 4K, Super 35. This is 26 megapixels, which is 6K, and it is full frame.
Yeah.
The other big difference that you're going to be looking at is the C70 is a DGO sensor, which is dual gain. That's where like you take the reading. Here's my image. I'm going to read it at two different gains, and then combine those images to get something with a wider dynamic range and a lower light. Mm-hmm. And even still, like the C70, if you go look at CineD's like benchmarks where they do the Xyla test stuff, with like a signal noise ratio of 1, the C70 is still like 8 on their list in cameras as far as like reported dynamic range when they do their test.
Wow.
The things that are in front of it are things like the Venice, the Raptor, the Alexa 35, Air Classic Mini LF.
Much more expensive.
And then just below it are like maybe like the Burano and the A7 IV or whatever. It's like 14.2 measured stops of dynamic range with a signal noise like 1.
Yeah.
So
pretty good.
And like 1, it's a little like 12th if you look at signal noise 2, but you can clean that stuff up. So whatever. It's good, and it's because of the dual gain. And like if you want something that has really good dynamic range, pretty quick rolling shutter, like 14 milliseconds. It's not like the fastest thing in the world because it's not stacked, but it's still like fairly quick because it's low megapixel, really good dynamic range. The C70 I think is going to be that camera over the C80 still.
Interesting. Okay.
But you get a little more dynamic range when you go full frame.
Yeah.
Like you just do. You can collect a little more light. Normally you're jumping to like a 16-bit sensor from a 14-bit sensor. Not that the video on this doesn't have any 16-bit outputs. Everything is basically 10-bit. So like, sure, you don't actually get all that information. Even if you shoot RAW, it's 12-bit RAW with like log. You don't get 16-bit. But even still, you're probably going to get maybe squeeze a little more dynamic range out of it. The big thing with the C80, and like go listen to episode 93 where we talk about the C400, because we talk about the sensor and like the triple gain, blah, 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 blah. But that one is a triple gain sensor. And that's kind of like the big deal with that one is similar to the FX3, you can shoot at a base ISO of 12,800.
Yeah.
And that's like, this is base. So like, this is super low noise. And like, holy cow, I have like great low light performance, decent performance at the base ISO of 800. But now you have that middle range.
Yeah.
And so you're not having to like, whenever like, oh, I have to shoot at ISO 6400. And so now I'm like really, really noisy because I had to go all the way to 12,800 to get to the next bump. Well, actually, like here's one in the middle, so you can shoot clean in the middle.
So it's not like, I think you said triple gain earlier. It's not actually like a dual gain sensor because it's not reading from all those at once.
Triple base ISO is what I should have said.
Yeah, because it's like you have these 3 presets you can use. But I mean, it's great to have that middle option.
Yeah, so it's like normally you hear like here's like a level gain input where you're not boosting it or restricting it, and at that level standard like 0 gain input into the sensor, this is like base noise that the sensor can output at some sensitivity.
Right.
And some cameras can do 2 different levels where it's like 0 is this and then 0 is this.
Right.
And this one has 3.
Yeah.
And so like each of those have a range where it's like if you're shooting at so like it gets really weird with this camera because if you're shooting in like RAW, I think 6400 is a base ISO, but if you're shooting in like HEVC or XAVC, it's 3200.
Interesting.
And so it's like it changes based upon how the sensor is being used.
Yeah.
But if you're in that 32/6400 ISO, you're at 6400. I think your lowest you can go with 800. So like it does have a minimum ISO that you can like drop it down to before you have to then shift it. But you can do things like set the base and say, I want to stay in this base and then like move up and down from there. Or you can just jump between them and only use those 3 like levels as your ISO. And so like a lot of really cool stuff you can do. But I mean, this is all things that we've talked about with the C400. It's super cool to get that level of technology, which isn't really in anything else right now, in a camera that's only $5,500.
Yeah. Like one of the lowest end cinema cameras they make. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, it is pretty neat. Okay, I think that was everything. That's like, I don't really want to get too much deeper into the sensor. That is the big reason.
Yeah.
Like, hey, look, the C80 is way cooler because it has this full frame sensor. I think that one more thing to kind of just mention on it, because you have to compare, like you're comparing to the C70, is it now has full, like 100% full coverage for its dual pixel AF.
Oh, did the C70 not?
It was 80%.
Oh, okay.
And then additionally, like they're bringing like the face tracking and the animal tracking and all that stuff to it. So like the autofocus is better, but like, you know how dual pixel has, it's like every pixel, half the pixel is a phase detect.
Right.
The field of view or something for each of those phase detect photo sites is like wider or something. And so they're saying like you're getting more detection area per photo site in a way. And because of that, it is also better than the C70, just from the sensor can get more information to then feed that into the algorithm to then get better results.
I mean, honestly, if I was looking at a Canon cinema camera, one of the things I'm hoping to get from it is really good autofocus performance, because I'm probably thinking,
for sure,
as opposed to something like Blackmagic where, it's probably, your money probably goes farther, but you're not going to get good autofocus. With something like this, I'm thinking I'm going to be able to use this for like a run and gun documentary style thing. It's going to be able to track and hold people really well and all that. And so these seem like good upgrades for that use case.
Yeah, they definitely do. It's interesting to see this level of technology that they brought down from the C400. I wouldn't have expected them to put the C400 sensor into something like this. And almost in some way it raises the question, like, why would I buy a C400? And like there are a few things that are different. The main thing is like it's obviously like inputs and shape of the camera are different.
Yeah, because the C80 is similar to a C70 in that it's kind of like a big bulky mirrorless camera, whereas the C400 is more of, I don't even know if you can really say it's a box style camera. It's really not, but it's more of like a traditional cinema camera type form factor.
Yeah, it's like you can approach it from 2 different ways. You can take your mirrorless and try to like beef that up, or you can take your cinema and try to dumb that down. And it feels like they're merging into each other from 2 different angles.
Yeah, it does feel that way.
But I think that if like if you need a C400 over a C80, just in like form factor and inputs.
Yeah.
One of the big things though is that the C80 is dual SD cards, not CF Express Type B.
Interesting.
Whereas the C400 is CF Express.
Okay. So can you record externally?
Yes, you can, but you probably don't want to.
Oh, okay.
If you want to shoot 6K RAW, you have to shoot it basically internally. You can only output 4K up to DCI 4K externally.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, it is a little weird.
That's a strange choice for those SD cards because, I mean, cameras that are much cheaper than that have CF Express. And for files that big, I'd really like to have CF Express.
It's almost like they did it as a means to restrict the camera.
It kind of does feel that way.
If they put CF Express in there and then didn't give them all the features as far as recording capability of the C400, people would complain because they software locked it.
I see.
But if they hardware lock it by putting slower cards in there, then they can be like, well, this is, we're already giving you so much camera for $5,500. This is the best you can do. Stop complaining. Yeah. Price segmentation.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of is. And it kind of works on me a little bit where it's a bummer, but I don't think it would keep me from buying the camera if I was interested in the camera.
This camera's the same price as an FX6.
Is it really?
Yep.
FX6 is only $5,500?
Yep.
Wow.
This is a better camera, I think.
Yeah.
The images are definitely better.
It's a newer sensor and all that.
I mean, the sensor, I think, is probably a bit better too. But anyways, back to just like with the SD card and the media formats. So you can shoot in Cinema RAW, which I guess is not like full RAW, but it's a logarithmic RAW type profile, 12-bit output, and that is 6K 30. And because it's RAW, if you choose to shoot 4K, it is a crop of the sensor.
Right.
They're not doing any of that, whatever XOCN Sony trickery to give you some sort of 4K oversampled full frame RAW. Didn't the C400 do that, or am I mixing that up with something else?
I think it might have done something similar to that. I can't remember. I know the Burano did. That was the first one that kind of what's going on here?
Yeah, witchcraft or whatever.
Yeah.
So this one, if you're going to shoot RAW, you can shoot 4K up to 60 with a crop, obviously, because it's RAW.
Sure.
And then you can shoot 6K up to 30. So that's definitely, it's a slower limit than what you're going to get off the C400. You could shoot 4K 120 off of that thing.
Sure.
And that comes down to the card size. And those are going to be 600 megabit per second kind of thing. But then if you don't need RAW, which I feel like most of the time you're shooting with a C80, probably not shooting RAW.
Yeah, I think so too.
And you could take it out to a external recorder if you needed to, but that's going to, like I said, limit you to 4K. Anyways, they have XAVC and XHEVC and a few different formats, but you can shoot in long GOP 4K oversampled 10-bit up to 120 frames per second.
Okay.
So pretty good. And then you can shoot 4K 60 oversampled 422, that 10-bit up to 60 megabits per second.
I mean, we've talked about this with the Blackmagic stuff, with the Pixis, but I think it's so important to have non-RAW options for a camera like this.
Yeah, definitely.
And that makes me way more interested in it because of that ability. Again, that run and gun use case. I don't want to be shooting in RAW. I don't want to have this whole workflow. I want good compressed options.
Yeah, whenever I look at cinema camera stuff, it's you want the RAW, give it the RAW. I mean, why would you not? This is why you're buying this camera. But then I think about how it would fit into our workflows and what we do, and I don't want to deal with those file sizes. And honestly, not RAW is the right choice for us.
I just think about, I would love to have a camera like this that's, feels a little bit nicer to use, gives you a really good image, has some features that, benefit you for something like an interview, but not, taking on this huge burden of the workflow.
Yeah, definitely.
That's why you need features like these codecs.
Yep. And I don't know if I said it or if I glossed over it. The 4K 60 is, you can get all intra in that one. And then if you need to go faster, you have to drop down into long GOP.
Okay. Yeah.
Just to be clear. But fine. Those are all good, highly competitive. Great. You get an oversampled 6K. It's going to be a very detailed image. I mean, this seems exactly what you need out of this price point.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think it's it's just a really nice camera.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, for what I would be looking for buying a camera, I've talked about Pixis and all that. It's the only thing that stops me from being super interested in this is Canon RF.
Yeah. I mean, that 24 to 105 2.8 lens is $3,000. Seems like it's incredible and probably the only lenses you would need.
So buy the camera and one $3,000 lens.
Yep. Exactly. Maybe you could get some of those Cooke SP3 primes.
Oh yeah, there you go. The other thing that is kind of interesting about it is, that this camera is $5,500, which I think is a very fair price and a very good price for what it is. But that they are still selling the C70, and new is $4,500, but you can get it used now for in very good condition, used for $3,500.
worth it. C70 is incredible.
Which that's a great price, like $3,500 for a camera that, as you said, has some advantages over this, and I think really still stands up pretty well. And it's funny how sometimes when these new things come out, it's like you can swoop in and get the old stuff for a lot cheaper, and that's something to consider.
It is definitely something to consider. I should cover maybe some of like the differences with the body and the inputs for this, just to maybe kind of, it's not exactly a C70. There are some improvements and differences. One of the big ones that everyone's talking about is it now has a 12G SDI output. And that one, it's like in the very top corner, just above the screen.
Oh, okay.
And so it's like your screen will like flip out in the normal flippy screen, situation. Right above that is where the SDI output is.
Huh.
And so you can mount a monitor on top and then put like a super tiny little SDI up there, and there you go.
Huh.
And now that it has the second output, you can run SDI and HDMI out at the same time, and you can set them to be different feed types.
Oh,
so you can say this one's clean feed to my Teradek, and this one is not clean feed to my own monitor.
I mean, that's the kind of feature that you love to see on cinema stuff. Like that's kind of what you're looking for when you're spending more money on something like this.
Yeah, that's a really nice upgrade. They added a handle mount to it, one that you can screw in. You can buy an OEM top handle for this thing. The C70 didn't have that. It was just a hot shoe up there. And then they replaced the hot shoe with their multifunction hot shoe, so you can like do the multifunction stuff. I think they missed a trick, because I think the C400 did this, where the handle would pass through the multifunction, but it doesn't. The handle's just kind of like in the way of the hot shoe whenever you put it on, which is a little weird and annoying.
Yeah,
I would have loved to see them like the way that they put it's like hot shoe, and then right in front of the hot shoe over the Canon logo is where the mount is for the top handle. And it's like, couldn't you have made the top handle twice as long and have it slide into the hot shoe and then bolt down?
Yeah.
And then now it's like a pass-through and you can put things on top of it. That would have been really cool. Maybe they missed a trick for that. Yeah. They could have charged like $600 for that handle, Daniel. $1,000.
I think this camera has a really interesting form factor, like looking at some of these pictures of it, because it kind of gives you a little bit of both. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's more of a mirrorless form factor camera. It has a normal grip to where you could hold it like, a big DSLR or whatever. And that's nice to have. But I mean, it seems like it's like proportional in ways that it almost works as a box camera, where it's like I could picture rigging it a little bit more easily than, like a traditional mirrorless camera.
Yeah. And it's nice that it brings a lot of those cinema things with it. I mean, this is a C70 feature, but you have there's two mini XLR inputs on this thing, which is not new. But the knob for gain and your input channel, like little levers and stuff that you normally see on like the side of like one of those TACCOM things that you put in your hot shoe or on the side of a cine camera, it's just behind the screen. Like you flip the screen out and like, hey, look, here's more audio controls. Like it's cool that they found a way to integrate that, but like keep the size where it makes sense.
Yep. It has built-in ND filters, which is another thing that, like why does the Pixis not have that? Why do a lot of these cheaper options not give you that? Like that's a great thing.
Yeah, and that's not new, right? So that is a C70 feature also. But if you're comparing this to like the FX6, the FX6 is using an electronic ND. These are still optical NDs with set stops.
Oh, nice.
And so it's like you're gonna have a better and like less color shifting from using something like this over something like an FX6. That's a nice like improvement if you're comparing them on the price points.
Yeah. Another thing I noticed, again, looking at the photos, is they've done a good job here where a lot of the options that you like, the buttons that you don't want to press, are actually on the left side of the camera.
Yep.
So like ND filter, sure, but also like white balance, zebra, peaking, all the waveform, all that stuff is actually on the left side. Yep. And so, if you picture like having this on a tripod or on a shoulder rig or whatever, it would work really well on that, in that kind of configuration. Yeah,
it's a good design, and it's definitely an improvement on what was there before, which like the C70 was a good design, and it's like, let's make it even better. They fixed the screen problem. Apparently the C70 would have the same issue that I have with my XH2S, where the screen gets wobbly. So like apparently that's supposed to be better. The bottom of the, and I don't think I have a bottom picture for you to see, but the bottom of the C70 only had like one direction for the tripod hole. Like I think it had a dual point tripod mount, but it was sideways.
Oh, I remember that. That was kind of weird.
Yeah, and now this one has, I think it has like the center tripod hole, but then it has 3 different orientations, kind of like at 3 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and 9 o'clock, if you're looking at it in that form, in that way. So you can put your tripod plate on and have it secure in the direction that you need.
Yeah.
And you have 3 options there. And then they kept the right hand grip tripod. It's got a little 3/4 where the right hand grip is, so you can go vertical.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's like really cool that they saw those issues and then they improved upon them.
Yeah, I like that.
The other thing they added was, this didn't add this. It has contacts for broadcast lens. I'm just looking at that. They added Wi-Fi and the Ethernet, like an RJ45 to the back of it.
Oh, okay.
And then along with that, the capabilities of like if you need to control and shoot this through Ethernet, you now can do that.
Cool.
And because it has the broadcast thing on it, now you have like basically a Ethernet connected camera that can then control the broadcast zoom because it has the contacts. So
yeah, pretty neat.
It's like they brought all these things to make this even more usable in professional workflows, whether that be we have to run like images and video off of this through Ethernet really quickly, we have to use it for broadcast, or we have to, like, it isn't quite mounting right, or we need to do a clean feed out to a Teradek, and now we have two feeds on this thing. You don't have to use it. Great. Like, a lot of really cool ads. And it still uses, like, the same Canon BP batteries, and I don't know, still has a tally light, all that stuff. But the big improvements there are, like I said, it's the top handle thing, the Ethernet, and the SDI, and then just kind of, just improving on the CS70, what was there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all the sensor stuff, but you're talking about all the non,
I'm talking about like just the body and the form factor.
Yeah.
Now, Daniel, look at these images, and like look at the top down, and look at the front on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see the little like thing sticking out the top with a circle on it?
Yeah. What I've been wondering what that is. Is that like a lock or something, or what is that?
I tried to find the manual for the C70, and it's not out yet because the camera's not out. I looked through all of Canon's material, and I watched every single YouTube video on the internet, and I still have no idea.
No idea what the plunger is.
What that? I have no idea. I don't know.
Maybe you have to prime it before you turn it on. Like it's like a lawnmower. That's weird. It's right next to the power switch, which makes me think that it's some sort of like interlock for turning it on.
It's also perfectly in line with the center of the center of sensor picture.
Yeah,
maybe it is a lock.
It's very strange because it doesn't it doesn't seem like a record button because there's one of those on the front.
This is not on the C70, by the way.
Weird.
Mm-hmm.
I have to figure that out.
Yeah,
it's a mystery.
I'm trying to sort it out. I do like that there is a slot select button on the camera where you can just like switch between the
cool.
card slots.
Yeah,
isn't that nice?
Yeah, that's nice.
That's nice.
I like that.
Yep. Supposedly they made the little thumb dial thing better too.
No,
just kind of a big improvement. Like all the things that annoyed you about your C70.
Yeah,
they basically made it better here.
I mean, I've got to say, like, if this was L mount, I would be looking to buy one. And I mean, even though I just can't stand how expensive RF mount is, like I look at the features on this thing and the way it's designed, and knowing that Canon has a lot of history with designing these types of cameras, like it seems like it's really well thought out and probably like comfortable and easy to use. Like honestly,
it's gonna have good colors.
Honestly, for the types of work we do, where we're doing, like run and gun style things and interviews and all that, this would honestly be a perfect camera.
Yeah, it would do pretty much anything I could imagine us shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And it has like you don't have to shoot RF mount on this thing, Daniel.
Yeah.
Like you can screw a new mount on top of that thing. You can shoot PL mount.
That's true. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it kind of makes me want to price out, like, what would it actually cost to get, maybe not that 24-105 f2.8 lens, but like what would it cost to get like a minimal set of lenses? And then you can also ask, like, do you start with a used C70 and use this as an upgrade option? Do you go straight to this? But I mean, it's priced well, and if you can get over the lens thing, it seems like a really good camera.
Yeah. So if I do like just like a quick price out on this, it's going to cost about $28,000.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah. That's the cost of a set of 5 RF mount Cooke SP3 prime lenses. Which would be 18, 25, 32, 50, 75, 100, and then the C80.
Oh, okay. I gotta say though, that is that what's in the picture. You have this picture here with
no.
That's a Canon 85.
Canon came out with those cinema lenses. Right. Remember?
I got it like that. That just looks really good though. Like that it's proportional. I mean,
they have a whole set of those RF lenses, and they're like a third the price of the SP3s. I'm trying to make you buy now, and they're all the same like filter size and everything and geared and
I'm just saying. I gotta say, I'm kind of interested in this camera.
Canon has been doing a lot to like support their cinema line. They did all the conversion to RF, and it was kind of like, man, boy, like what are they kind of doing with their cinema stuff? And now it's like C400 is great, C80 is great. They have their cinema primes that they came out with at the end of last year, and those all seem pretty good. Like Cook is supporting them with some of their lenses. They came out with the 24 to 105 2.8, which is like, do you need another lens for most of like your run and gun shooting? Probably not.
It seems like they're investing in it.
Daniel, I didn't even mention the video focused 35 millimeter 1.4.
It seems like they're investing in their cinema cameras in a way that, like Fuji, for example, is not investing in the video side, which, it gives you more confidence.
Yeah, it definitely gives you more confidence. Oh, geez, those things are expensive. $3,500 each for the Canon CNR lenses.
Yeah,
I don't really see on B&H where you can buy them as a kit, but there's 1, 2, 3. There's 7 of them. So what's 7 times? I guess the average price is like 35, maybe closer to 4. Is that right? Yeah, it's going to be a little cheaper to go with those SP3s, Daniel, if not the same price. So I'm going to go ahead and say these are none of them are support autofocus anyway, and I'd rather you have the Cook lenses.
Yeah.
Yep, you can get the Cooks remounted.
I don't think I'd be getting the Cook lenses or the Canon Cinema.
Well, yeah, you'll spend all your money on the 24 to 105.
Yep.
Anyway, I wanted to kind of do one quick loop back on the FX6 before we called it on the C80.
I was a little surprised that it was that cheap when you said same price.
Well, the FX6 came out in 2020.
Yeah, I guess it's getting a little long in the tooth.
And there have been a lot of rumors about an FX6 Mark II, which I'm pretty excited about because it would be cool to see them take a lot of the A9 or A1 or Burano or those kind of cool features, FX3 stuff that they've been doing, get that into something like an FX6. I think that Sony could knock Canon's socks off with a $6,000 FX6 type camera, maybe $7,000, and just like really split this line of like, the C400 and the C80 are super slick, but have you seen that FX6?
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens when they eventually, when they come out with that. Not if, they have to. It's got to be like within the next year, I expect. Anyway, right now though, this 4-year-old Sony, it's 4K only. They both have basically the same inputs. You get CF Express A, but like you'd only get RAW if you shoot out. Like you have to run out to an external recorder if you want to shoot RAW with the FX6. So you're basically only getting like, I don't even think you're getting XOCN. You're just getting kind of standard Sony whatever formats.
Yeah.
Like there's cinema formats, but it's like HEVC stuff. It's the electronic NDs, which we already talked about. And it's XAVC that I found it in my notes, but not XOCN. Would be cool if they had that. It's like a little lighter, oddly enough, but the image is just kind of like a little worse. It can shoot 4K 120, but it's like with compromises. And so it's like the C80 essentially outclasses it in most cases.
Which I'd be surprised if it didn't, like just with how much newer it is.
Yeah, same. Especially 4 years on. It's like, yeah, sure, there's going to be something better. Yeah. But it just kind of helps underline, like, boy, Sony really needs to come out with a new FX6.
Yeah, because when you look at the cameras, you're like, well, the FX6 has to be better.
Yeah, it doesn't even have Ethernet. It does shoot, quote unquote, 16-bit RAW up to 4K 60 with over HDMI or SDI.
Yeah,
but also like it's not really 16-bit.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. It kind of feels like, Sony has the FX3, which is cheaper than this camera. And then they have the FX6, which I think used to be more expensive. And like, when it came out was higher end, comparatively. So it's kind of like,
the FX6 was really good when it came out.
Canon has this C70, C80 line that kind of sits right in between the FX3 and the FX6. And so they kind of like leapfrog each other in a weird way.
It was $6,000 when it came out.
Okay.
Even if it came out for that same price or a smidge more, I think Sony could release something that makes you want to pay $1,000 more.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking 5,500 or, at that point, yeah, like another $500 to $1,000, it's going to come down to the features, but it's very believable that they could come out with something more appealing.
But maybe it's just a matter of form factor. Like sometimes you can prefer that mirrorless style form factor. I mean, in some way, you like there was one point where I thought you were going to like buy a Blackmagic Cinema 6K instead of a Pixis because you were like, but Lucas, it already has a screen on it.
Yep. I mean, that's kind of my thought looking at this. Like I said, I think they did a good job on the C80 of sort of splitting the difference where the way they designed this, I think, meets a lot of the goals that you would have for a box style camera. But you do still have the ability, if you want, to just pick it up and run around with it, which I can imagine cases where it's like, even if I normally want this thing rigged up, for certain shoots, certain situations, maybe I do just want to be able to walk around with it, use the built-in screen. And like, it's cool to have that option. Whereas if you have a big, box style camera, you're committing to that form factor all the time. And anytime you shoot with it, it's going to be, pretty big and obtrusive. And so you just have to know what you're getting into.
Yeah, you got to know, your workflow and all that sort of thing. So, I mean, it's like, there's more in this market, Daniel. We haven't even talked about the Nikon Red Komodo.
The Nikon Red Komodo.
That's only $5,000.
Yeah, because they dropped the price on it. And that's the original Komodo, not the Komodo X.
It came out in 2019.
But it's red.
Yep.
The problem, as we said, the problem with that camera is that you would have to spend so much money to actually use it, like, for example, to get a screen. And it's really not comparable. Like,
well, no, it's a totally different camera.
Yeah. But price-wise, it's similar.
I don't know. Like, if you need a red, like, get a red, but I don't know at any point when, like, a Komodo X might be the right choice over. I guess if you, like, really need raw workflow and a crash cam and global shutter.
If you're shooting a movie, I think is the answer.
Sure.
I don't know.
I feel like you could shoot a movie on the C80.
I think you could. I mean, it's just, if that's all you're doing, I could see a red making sense. But like I said, a lot of it to me comes down to having good codecs and knowing that realistically, a lot of times when you shoot things, you don't want to have to rig the camera way up and you don't want to have to mess with RAW. And it's nice to have both options to where you can do that if you want to, but you don't have to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Did you say codecs or Kodaks?
Yes.
Are we going to talk about the Super 8?
That's it for the show today. Thanks for joining us, and if you liked it, tell a friend so they can check it out too. You can find out more about the show at www.cameragearpodcast.com, and you can find us on Twitter @CameraGearPod. We'll be back with more next week.